The world is louder and more chaotic than ever. That's why clarity and truth have never been more important. Welcome to the Trust Factor Podcast. Good morning, everybody. Shavua Tov. Thank you for joining another episode of the Trust Factor Podcast. I'm still a little bit under the weather, so I hope my voice doesn't bother you too much. But we were talking last week about some very important issues, specifically how a judge can affect your life, how a judge in a position of such awesome power that they have the ability to incarcerate you, to take away your freedoms, to basically stop you from being a productive member of society. How important it is that they are careful with their decisions. And I was talking to you about the judges that have made publicity recently. And one of them, I thought his name was DiCaprio. It's Caprio, Frank Caprio. If you've never heard of him, look him up. Go watch some of his stuff. If you've got time, take a look and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. And then you can look up this other guy, I think his name was Milron, and you'll see the antithesis of a Frank Caprio, the exact opposite. Frank Caprio is an honest, hardworking, committed, caring individual who recognizes that the people standing in front of him are human beings and who takes the time to understand who he's dealing with before he even gets into the issue of the ticket or the fight and the challenge that's ahead of them. Only after he's understood in his mind that he's dealing with a human being does he enter into a discussion around what the punishment or the verdict might be. The other individual is so scrupulous and so careful and holding everybody's feet to the fire when they dare step out of line in his courtroom. Even if you say something with a smile, but something that he doesn't like, nothing offensive. Just like this IT guy who says, probably just a false alarm. Done. Over. Chops you up into little pieces and calls your supervisor to get you fired. And then he continues by using every curse word you can imagine. All of a sudden, he starts speaking like a truck driver in his courtroom that's supposed to be a place of honor and dignity and respect, that he's so careful with everybody else that they should all be careful. Remember, you're in my courtroom. You will not disrespect this courtroom. What he's really saying is, you will not disrespect me, because it's all about me. Me, I can curse all day long in my courtroom. On camera. That's my right, but nobody else has the right to do it. My friends, wonderful examples, two opposing examples of how to behave and how not to behave. If you don't know who I'm talking about, look them up. Caprio and Milron. That's it, my friends. Now let's move on to the person that we all disdain. Not because of who they are, but because of what they do for a living. Probably one of the worst jobs that you could ever have. Necessary, but a very difficult job. What is it? The meter maid. The guy who gives out the parking tickets. The guy who drives around your community looking for somebody who's parked illegally and can't wait to slap a ticket on them. Oftentimes, it's justified. In fact, most of the times, if not all the times, it's justified. But they have to also employ their brain and their logic. They can't just go around following the letter of the law to a T. They have to first remind themselves that they're dealing with human beings. The book gives us an example. A person double parks just for a moment in a no parking zone in order to pick up a heavy appliance that he just finished purchasing. He's obstructing nobody. He's not in anybody's way, and he has plans to move. He runs out for a minute or two to go in and help this salesperson unload this heavy appliance into his car. And this parking inspector, this meter maid, is waiting in ambush because he knows that this is a popular spot for people to do that very same thing. And he can't wait to slap a ticket on this guy's windshield. And he's perfected the art. He's perfected it to the point where he can drop that ticket and get out of sight within seconds. He's already punching in your details from his covert position. And then as soon as you exit the vehicle, within seconds, he's at your window and he's gone, vanishes. You wonder, how is it possible that this guy could have dished out a ticket so quickly? It's because he's taken his job so seriously that he's forgotten the human element. He's forgotten that he's about to destroy a human being's day. He's forgotten that a person is behind that wheel and that they're now going to have to pay a fine that they shouldn't have to pay. It doesn't make any sense. They're not obstructing anybody. They clearly need that spot for a few minutes and then they're on their way. Why will you insist? Why would you look for that opportunity? It's like the police officers who sit and wait in the shadows, but not in some random place, at the bottom of a very steep hill where the speed limit is 40 kilometers an hour. At the bottom of that hill, because what happens? At the bottom of that hill is where you don't even have to have your foot on the gas pedal. Your car is just by virtue of gravity going to be doing 60, 70 kilometers an hour. You have to actively ride your brake pedal in order to be at the speed limit or below. And the police officer knows this. And so he hangs out there all day long. Why? Because he's opportunistic. Because he wants to give out as many tickets as possible. He doesn't care that somebody would have the propensity to go over 40. Even if you're at 50, he's going to nail you because you took your foot off the brake for 1 second. There are many like that, and that's what we're talking about. We're talking about people who don't recognize, who don't stop to think, wait a second, this isn't just a job. I'm not just doing this to earn a living. It's not like I'm working behind the counter somewhere, helping somebody in a hardware store. I have a real ability to negatively impact somebody's life. The meter maid, the one that gets me the most, is handing out tickets specifically on holidays. And it doesn't have to be Jewish holidays. Any holiday that they recognize that around churches or synagogues or mosques, there are going to be plenty of cars on the street and sometimes overnight because the parking lots are overflowing with cars. They cannot wait to get there on the holiday and to put tickets on all these cars. It's a windfall for them. Think about it. They don't have to drive much. They park their car and they just walk for 100 meters and they dish out 100 tickets in those 100 meters. No problem. You understand? It doesn't matter that these people are going to come out of their holiday worship and they're going to be in a good mood and you're going to spoil it for every single one of them. They don't stop to think about humanity. Think about this. The individual who gets that ticket is now cursing out that meter maid like never before. Multiply that by the 100 cars that just got those tickets from this overzealous meter maid, and think about what this guy has to repair. Think about the extent to which this guy has to atone. And it's impossible to atone because he needs to find all these people and ask them for forgiveness. But you say, wait a second, Jesse, he's fully within his rights to give the ticket. Yes, no question, fully within his rights, but he is not behaving in a way that is godlike. Simply not. Yes, God has every opportunity to hold us to account on every single thing that we do. And if he did, the world would be returned back to the way that it was before creation. Tohu vavohu, which means absolutely nothingness. A complete state of chaos, of snow, of friction, nothing there. That's what it would return to. Why? Because we make more mistakes than we care to admit. But instead of being a tyrant, instead of holding us to the letter of the law, like we said before, he created a world of justice, yes. But that justice is metered by mercy. An individual needs to act and behave like their creator, which means that if you're in a position like a meter maid or a police officer or a judge, and you have the ability to uphold justice, you need to include an element of mercy. That's why they have plea deals. That's why when you go to court, you can plea out, which means you could plead guilty to a lesser offense and get away with a smaller fine. That's fine because everybody gets offered that. But to take it to another level and really understand who you're dealing with, or take it upon yourself to not even give out those tickets because you recognize that there is a very big holiday right now that everybody's celebrating, and the parking lot I can see is clearly full, and people are forced to park on the streets. Okay, I get it. They're there for a few hours. I'm just going to move on. I'll come back at a later time. I'll do it overnight, whatever. Give a little bit of leniency. Be human. Because if you're not, that's the way he's going to behave with you. You understand what these people get themselves into? The overzealous ones? They become miserable in their jobs. Not because they're miserable people, but because their jobs make them miserable. And not because they hate doing their jobs, but because when they're overzealous with handing out the tickets or finding people guilty or laying down the law and throwing the book at people, their lives, when they leave that courtroom or when they take off that uniform and they go home to their families, the lives that they lead is a mirror of what it is in the workplace. In other words, God makes sure that people who they interact with, when they take their car to the mechanic, they come out with more problems than they went in with. When they have to go to the dentist does more harm than good to them. When they have to pay a bill, suddenly they find themselves fighting because they feel that they were overcharged, and in fact, they may have been overcharged, but there isn't an individual who is willing to listen to them. That is the epitome of their lives, outside of work. Why? Because that's what they do to other people all day long, and they enjoy it. They revel in it. These people create a cycle of difficulties and challenges and negativity for themselves. You don't want to be there, guys. So the opposite is true. If this person, like Judge Caprio, lives a life committed to making people's lives easier and better, he still holds them to account, but he always injects a little bit of mercy into his justice, then God runs the same way with him. I can assure you, I don't have to know him. I don't have to know what his life was like with his wife and with his children. I don't need to know. And I don't need to know about Milron. I can tell you that each one of their lives on the personal front is an exact replica of what it's like on the professional front. This Caprio lived a good life, raised good children, had a smile on his face at home, didn't have nearly the amount of problems that our friend Milron has. His children are probably mirrors of him. He's always at odds with his spouse or his partner. He's always dealing with people who are trying to one-up him, who are trying to take advantage of him. He's always at odds with people, feeling like he's being taken advantage of. And it's true. And the reason that he's like that is because he is doing that to other people. There's no such thing as coincidence, my friends. You guys know this by now. Conduct your life in a way that you want Hashem to conduct your life for you, because he has that power. If you want a life where you don't have to fight, if you want a life where you can sit back and relax in almost every single situation, no matter how challenging it is, you can put a smile on your face. You don't have to react from a position of emotion. You don't shoot back from the hip. You don't say something that you're going to end up regretting. You don't waste days and weeks and months on the phone with all kinds of companies battling it out because you think they're taking advantage of you, that you've got no more time to do all the things you want to do because you're busy fighting with everybody. The only reason that that's happening is because that's the way you conduct yourself with the people around you. You may not see it, but stop and be honest with yourself and reflect. And the next time you have an urge to pick up the phone and fight, or the next time somebody comes at you and asks for something and makes a demand, and it sounds like it might be something that they could have an argument for, then try to understand them. Try to put yourself in their shoes. Try to nullify your will and give them the benefit of the doubt. Extend them a little bit of credit, a little bit of mercy, and you will see in your life that God will extend to you that very same mercy. Have an amazing day, my friends. We'll chat again tomorrow. Thank you for spending time with us on the Trust Factor podcast. If you've heard something today that moved you, save this episode and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss upcoming conversations that challenge, empower, and uplift. And if you're on social media, connect with us. Leave your thoughts. Drop a quote that resonated with you. Hashtag the Trust Factor podcast. Until next time, keep growing in your trust and keep living with purpose. I'm Jesse Revivo, and this has been the Trust Factor podcast. Thanks for listening.